What is good, and welcome back to another episode of The Hobbyist. For today's video, I'm going to talk about this card for just a little bit. Actually, I'm going to talk about the grade. So this card I purchased a little while ago in a PSA slab. It was a PSA 5. And I then crossed it over to a CGC, and I crossed over as a 7. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit just to kind of go over a couple things. So on this card, what I noticed is there's a slight little white tick down there on the corner. Not sure if you can see it, but it's there, little white tick. And then over in this top corner here, kind of across, I don't know if I can get it, but across here, there's like this little kind of like a fade line or wear line. I was trying to see if there's one down here. I don't see one down there, but I could make one out up here. And checking out the back, again, was looking for similar type of deals. What might have made this card grade as a 5 at PSA. And I could only see that, I think down here in this corner was another little wear line. Not sure if you can see it there, but I can. It's faint, but it's there. And so I think those two items, or those three items mainly, maybe is what brought it down to a PSA 5. And so that's what I'm going to talk about, because in these grading companies, there's a lot of, it's up to the grader's opinion on how they interpret certain things. And so like this little wear line across here, if you're familiar with these prototype cards, the way that they were kind of displayed or displayed was in like a kind of like a manila folder, about that thick of a manila folder, kind of rigid but still flexible, and it just had enough to cover, insert these corners. And so a lot of these cards will have like some wear mark on these corners, just like a line coming across here, just because of the nature of how they were displayed and all that stuff and stored. So like I said, what I was saying is that these things are very opinion based, because one company or one grader at one company could interpret that as surface wear. Another could interpret it as a mark or a scratch. That's a better way, a scratch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of look at the PSA grading scale and the CGC grading scale, and we're going to kind of take a look at those together and just evaluate, just learn. So hang tight and let's take a look. Okay, so here we are at the computer. Microphone is probably a little bit different, but you should still be able to hear me okay. So starting off with the PSA 5. On the PSA website, they have their grading standards listed. And for PSA 5, it provides the following explanation or definition. So it says, on a PSA 5 card, very minor rounding of the corners is becoming evident. Surface wear or printing defects are more visible. There may be minor chipping on edges. Loss of original gloss will be more apparent. Focus of picture may be slightly out of register. Several light scratches may be visible upon close inspection, but do not detract from the appeal of the card. Card may show some off-whiteness of borders. Centering must be 85-15 or better on the front and 90-10 or better on the back. So let's compare that to CGC's grade scale. CGC has the following definition for 5 grade. At 5, the corners may exhibit fuzziness and very minor rounding, which is similar to what PSA's. The corners may come to a point, but may have 2 to 3 dinged corners. There may also be chipping on the edges, minor border discoloration, noticeable print spots and or color or focus imperfections on the surface. On cards with scratch-off surfaces, the coating may be removed, but the surface is not damaged. So, just taking those two at face value, the scale is very similar between a PSA and a CGC card at a 5. Okay? So now let's take a look at the 7. At a 7, PSA standards say, a PSA 7 is a card with just a slight surface wear visible upon close inspection. There may be slight fraying on some corners. Picture focus may be slightly out of register. A minor printing blemish is acceptable. Slight wax staining is acceptable on the back of the card only. Most of the original gloss is retained. Centering must be approximately 70-30 to 75-25 or better on the front and 90-10 or better on the back. Now let's compare that to the CGC grading scale. For a 7, CGC, a card graded 7 may also have a touch of wear on 3 or more corners and or slightly rough edges. The image may be slightly out of register. A slight diamond cut is allowed and very slight wax staining is allowed on the reverse. For sports and non-sports cards, centering should be 70-30 or better. So again, the two grades for PSA and CGC, the definitions are very similar. Very similar. What would cause a card to be graded at 5 at one and a 7 at another company when the definitions are very similar? The only thing is opinion. That's it. The person grading the card. That's the one reason why PSA, and you see this with PSA cards, even with PSA cards. You can send in a card and get a 5 or a 6 with one grader, and then come back PSA graded again at a 8, 9, or sometimes even a 10. So it is opinion, and the president of PSA also reinforced this from a recent statement he made. Check this out.
Are you beginning to use AI or the tech that you have through Genamint or whatever to people who crack out and then resubmit and know it's the same card?
Yes, we're
right, because that matters.
Yeah, no, we're making progress there. Obviously, with the imaging, everything before and after, we can tell certain cards if we've seen them before. Doesn't mean it's necessarily going to get the same grade, because it's a grader's opinion, and there's ranges and standards, so it could grade something differently. Just because it got a PSA 8 the first time doesn't mean it's always going to get a PSA 8. It could get a 9, it could get a 7, it could get a 7.5. But yeah, we're starting to put this into practice. We're using it not so much to do the digital grading. We are relying on our expert graders to assess the card, but we're trying to have a tech assist.
So again, here we are with the CGC 7 that was a PSA 5. And again, it basically just comes down to a grader's opinion. The grading standards for each of these companies, even BGS and SGC, if you take a look at their grading standards and you compare them grade for grade, their definitions and standards for each are very similar. So you're just paying for somebody's opinion. Like other people have stressed before, you're paying for another person's opinion. Now, whether or not you agree with that opinion is probably going to determine whether you send it to another grading company or if you resubmit it to that same company, because you know that even though one grader gave it a 5, another grader from that same company might give it a different grade. And it often happens that you get a different grade. I'm not saying every time it does, but often enough. So that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out. I hope this was somewhat educational for you. And until next time, collect what you like, grade where you like, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.